Okay, Cody. So we're working on the second deck. I put it together, played it a couple of times. This is my commander, Kenneth the Returned King. If you've ever seen Monty Python's The Holy Grail, you'll understand why I call this my Holy Grail, my happy ending. The deck is more for lulls, so it's all about mana fixing rather than really mana acceleration. So, one of each basic land type, and then a couple of dual lands or multicolored producing lands of varying kinds, and a few fetches that I've collected over the years. Yeah? In some cases, the reprints of the dual lands leave much to be desired. This is the most expensive card in my deck. I pulled that from a box. And here are a series of lands to help with the fixing that produce of any color. This one gives my opponent a creature token, unfortunately. This one's any color, but only for creature spells. Generally that. And then a whole series of lands that come into play tapped unless I control a land of a particular or combination of basic land types. And since a lot of those dual lands and extra lands that I have two land types, most of the time these cards will not come into play tapped. And then some utility lands helps me keep my hand full without having to discard, and helps me a little bit with fixing, but it's based entirely on what my opponent has. In case I need a little bit of extra, this one can become a copy of anything, and this turns everything into swamps. And there isn't much mana acceleration in this deck, and even the ones I have are a little costly. Mana Reflection doubles everything. This very small mana acceleration, but also helps with the fixing. Same here. Gives me a little bit extra, and gives me a card draw. This one more or less lets me scry 4 for a creature card, and of course, turns into a pseudo Gaia's Cradle. Gaia's Cradle. I need a new tongue. And now for my card drawing package, Notion Thief, I'm pretty sure you know, and that's why these cards being draw effects for all players essentially just mean I get to draw extra cards. And even if I don't have Notion Thief out, they're quick and continuous draw effects for everyone and might help me stay off people's radar until I get some of my more dangerous stuff out. Now, creature spells being played cause me to draw cards. Second version of that. Hopefully one massive draw spell right here, because it's going to come in with a bunch of +1/+1 counters if I play it at the right time, and give me a bunch of cards to draw right after that. And every time this card gets a +1/+1 counter, I get to draw a card. And then over here, every time I gain life, I get to draw a card. At the end of my step, I draw up to 7 if I have below 7, so hopefully make sure that I always have a full hand. And every time my opponents activate a non-mana ability, I get to draw a card. Hopefully it slows them down, makes them worry. A couple of planeswalkers to help me with draw, or at least that's their main intent. The fairy, the ultimate also means that every time I draw a card, I get to exile a permanent an opponent controls, so that's always good. But either way, draw a card, untap lands, great. This one, hopefully she stays off the radar enough that I can get my ultimate out, where any creature that comes into play under my control, even creature tokens, nets me a card draw. Alright, a form of recursion, resurrection. In both these cases, except Shieldred also forces them to sacrifice. And this one allows me to bring in a creature card during my upkeep from either graveyard. Over here has a little bit of a life gain mechanic, and also a little bit of resurrection. Over here, anytime I lose a card, instead of it going to a graveyard, it goes to the bottom of my library. And for cards that I have lost, anytime this deals damage, I get to return a card from my graveyard to my hand. Any card. Pick a card, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, so over here are creature token productions. This one taps to create a 2/2 white creature token, or produces one every time I play a legendary spell. This one gives me 1/1 white, black, and spirit creature tokens with flying, plus has the added benefit of having protection from creatures and destroying creatures that deal damage to me. And even if they have indestructible, I still get the token. This one gives a power boost to black and green creatures and produces a black and green 1/1 token that becomes a 3/3 while it's on the field. And every time I cast a creature spell, I get a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token. Now, these 4 cards together are all token creature production of Saprolings. Now, depending on the order they're played and the timing, this can be massive Saproling production. And the secondary ability also means those Saprolings can get huge really quick. And then some things to help out with token production. And the second other ability on Doubling Season also helps out with some +1/+1 counters that I'm going to do on creatures, and you'll see that next. Now, while these things aren't much in the way of +1/+1 counters by number, they do some massive work. Plus, this helps out with loyalty counters on Planeswalkers. Couldn't remember that for a second. And this one means that every creature comes into play with at least 2 +1/+1 counters. Unless, of course, it's powered up, then it gives them more. Over here, minor life gain and +1/+1 counters on each creature I control, which gets doubled by Doubling Season, and might later on get doubled with the double proliferate. And these are just some more sneaky shenanigan creatures, removing, returning to play under my control, and forcing them to block, untapping all my stuff every turn, forcing them to only play stuff during their turn pretty much, and giving my creatures flash. Every creature comes into play, gives me a little bit of life, severely weakens their creatures and gives mine a boost, slightly weakens their creatures and gives mine a boost, and also a little bit of graveyard hate because I can take cards out of their graveyard and remove them from the game, and possibly get myself a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. And not to mention, as an Angel of Hope makes my stuff indestructible. Small way to slow down the game by making all the creatures weak, except for this one. And a way to slow them down by forcing them to have to get rid of this enchantment before they can try and spot removal anything of mine. Some more sneaky shenanigans. This one basically lets me search for 5 cards. And considering how many colors I have in this deck, there's a good chance that I will bring out something quite interesting or nasty. This one lets me scry and feasibly can let me play stuff off the top of my library for free with its second ability. Its last ability is pretty much nothing for me. This one, flash in a creature without paying for it, especially some of those expensive ones, you saw them. And this also helps me with some artifacts or legendary permanents. It gets around people countering spells, but still have to worry about countering abilities. Then I can play any card from my hand that's not a land if this deals any damage. Now, this one I'm thinking about taking out just because I'm trying to keep my graveyard pretty empty, but in case that fails and I end up with a fairly full graveyard, whenever an opponent plays a spell, I get to play a creature from my hand and maybe turn the tables. Now, this is just a big dude, and if I have to, I can sacrifice some of my creatures for some life gain to keep it on the field, or in those times where I get my opponent's creature with Sisters in Stone Death, I can just sacrifice their creatures, so they'll never get it back. Lil helps me with some destruction, spot removal here or there, just makes it so my creatures can do stuff right away, and decimate. It can decimate people's strategies. This one just helps with the Planeswalkers, and in case I have a decent ETB creature or permanent on the field, then I can get it again without having to kill it and resurrect it. Now, I'm just going to pause on this one because it's a lot of text, but these sets of cards are instant win conditions, or rather, let's just call it a time bomb. If nobody takes care of it soon enough, then I win and everybody blows up. Now, this is also another one, and you saw how there are plenty of ways, or plenty of times, that my creatures can get +1/+1 counters, and 20 of them isn't that hard. Plus, it can also put +1/+1 counters on creatures. This one, stalling the game. If I get no damage for 5 turns, I'm going to win the game. And then the final card, the reason it's my Happily Ever After, is for the card Happily Ever After. Basically, if I have enough colors and permanent types among cards on the field and the graveyard, also a final win condition for me. Happily Ever After for me, and sadly never after for everybody else. Well, Cody, I hope you liked this one. I hope it gave you some ideas and you got some lulls out of it too. Alright, catch you later. Hope this finds you well.